She walked into the Gilded Oak wearing diamonds and a smile that could buy the building twice over. Everyone saw a wealthy woman celebrating alone. Garrett saw a payday, his last chance to clear a debt written in blood. He handed Elias a vial and a choice: poison her plate, or watch his daughter pay the price. But when Elias slipped her a warning instead of the toxin, the elegant stranger did something unexpected. She smiled, pushed the steak aside, and made a phone call that ended with 5 words. The manager tried to kill me. What happened next wasn't just justice. It was a reckoning, because the woman Garrett tried to poison owned the very debt he was dying to escape. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel, and it proves that powerful stories resonate everywhere. Elias Vance was a desperate man working at the Gilded Oak, one of the city's most expensive restaurants. He was a single father raising his 8-year-old daughter Maya on a server's salary. Every day was a struggle to keep food on the table and pay the rent on their small apartment. He had worked at the restaurant for 3 years under the management of Garrett Mills, a corrupt man who treated his staff like disposable tools. Garrett had gotten himself into serious trouble. He owed a massive gambling debt to a local crime syndicate, the kind of people who didn't forgive or forget. They had given him a deadline, and that deadline had passed. Now they wanted their money, and Garrett didn't have it. So he had come up with a plan, a terrible plan that required Elias's help. 3 weeks earlier, Garrett had called Elias into his office after closing time. He told Elias everything about the debt, about the dangerous people he owed money to, and about what they would do if he didn't pay. Then he made it clear that Elias was going to help him, whether he wanted to or not. Garrett knew where Maya went to school. He knew her schedule. He knew which neighbor picked her up on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The threat was clear without being spoken directly. Tonight was the night Garrett's plan would happen. A wealthy woman named Celia Thorne had made a reservation at the restaurant. Garrett had done his research on her. She was a venture capitalist who had just sold her technology company for $500 million. She was in town for one night, staying at the Meridian Hotel. She was dining alone. She was perfect. Garrett's plan was simple and evil. Elias would serve Celia a poison meal. The poison was a substance Garrett called the sleep, a tasteless and odorless toxin that would make her dizzy and sick within 45 minutes. She would need help leaving the restaurant. Garrett's criminal associates would be waiting in her hotel lobby, pretending to be good Samaritans. They would help her to her room, wait for her to pass out completely, and then rob her of everything valuable. Her jewelry alone was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. By the time she woke up the next morning, Garrett would have paid off his debt. Garrett gave Elias a small glass vial containing the poison. He told him to put 3 drops into the sauce that would be served with Celia's ribeye steak. That was all he had to do. 3 drops, and his daughter would be safe. Refuse, and Maya would become the syndicate's target instead. Elias held the vial in his hand and felt sick. He had spent his entire adult life trying to be a good father, trying to teach Maya right from wrong. Now he was being forced to poison an innocent woman to protect his child. There was no good choice. Either he became a criminal, or he put his daughter in danger. The weight of that impossible decision crushed him. He watched Celia Thorne through the kitchen window. She sat at her table looking elegant and calm, reading something on her phone. She had no idea what was about to happen to her. She had no idea that her life was in the hands of a scared server who was running out of time to make a choice. Elias spent the next 10 minutes in agony. The kitchen prepared Celia's meal while he stood there with a vial in his pocket, his mind racing through every possible option. He could go to the police, but Garrett would know immediately. He could warn Celia directly, but Garrett was watching from the manager's station, and there were security cameras everywhere. He could refuse to do it, but then what would happen to Maya? His hands shook as he tried to think. He was not a brave man. He had spent 3 years keeping his head down, doing his job, staying out of trouble. That was how you survived when you were poor and powerless. You didn't make waves. You didn't stand up to people like Garrett. You did what you were told, and hoped tomorrow would be better. But this was different. This wasn't about getting yelled at or losing his job. This was about poisoning another human being. This was about letting criminals rob and possibly kill an innocent woman. Could he really do that? Could he live with himself if he did? The head chef called out, that the ribeye was ready. Elias's time had run out. He had to make a decision right now, in this moment, with no more time to think or plan or hope for a miracle. He made his choice. Elias picked up the plate with Celia's steak and carried it toward the dining room. His heart pounded so hard he thought everyone could hear it. As he walked past the bar, he grabbed a white cloth napkin from the stack. He pulled a pen from his vest pocket. With shaking hands, he wrote a message on the napkin. "The kitchen is a crime scene. Don't touch the meat. My manager is watching. Call the police, but don't let him know I told you." He folded the napkin and carried it out with the plate. Garrett watched him from across the room with cold, calculating eyes. Elias forced himself to walk normally, to smile, to act like everything was fine. This was the most important performance of his life. He approached table 7. Celia Thorne looked up at him with polite interest. Up close, she was even more intimidating. There was something sharp in her eyes, something that suggested she missed nothing and forgot even less. "Your ribeye, ma'am," Elias said, setting the plate down in front of her. His voice almost didn't shake. "Thank you," she said. He placed a folded napkin next to her wine glass, positioning it so she would definitely see it. Then he poured her wine, his hands trembling so badly that a few drops splashed onto the tablecloth. "Are you all right?" Celia asked, watching him carefully. "Yes, ma'am. Just tired. Long shift. Please enjoy your meal." He walked away before she could ask anything else. He didn't look back. He couldn't. If he looked back and saw her reading the note, Garrett would see it on his face. So he walked straight to the kitchen and leaned against the wall. Trying not to throw up, he had done it. He had betrayed Garrett. He had chosen to do the right thing even though it might cost him everything. Now all he could do was wait and see what happened next. Would Celia believe the note? Would she call the police? Would Garrett figure out what he had done? Through the kitchen window, he watched Celia pick up the napkin. She unfolded it slowly. She read the message. Then she did something Elias didn't expect. She smiled. "If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My father said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. But I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show him that these tales matter. Please subscribe to my channel, and let's keep breathing life into stories that were never meant to stay silent." Now, let's continue. Celia Thorne read the note a second time, then carefully folded it and put it in her purse. She picked up her phone and made a call. Elias couldn't hear what she was saying, but he could see her lips moving. The conversation lasted less than 30 seconds. Then she put the phone down and picked up her wine glass. She didn't touch the steak. She didn't call for the manager. She just sat there, sipping her wine, looking completely relaxed. Garrett appeared next to Elias in the kitchen. "Why isn't she eating?" "I don't know," Elias said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Maybe she's waiting for it to cool down." "You put the drops in?" "Yes." Garrett studied him for a long moment. Elias felt like he was being x-rayed. Finally, Garrett nodded and walked back to his station. But he kept watching table 7 with increasing frustration. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Celia still hadn't touched the steak. She ate some bread. She drank her wine. She checked her phone. But the ribeye sat untouched on her plate, cooling and getting less appetizing with every passing minute. "Something's wrong," Garrett muttered. He walked out onto the dining room floor, putting on his customer service smile. Elias watched through the window as Garrett approached table 7. "Is everything all right with your meal, Miss Thorne?" Garrett asked. "Actually, I've changed my mind," Celia said. "I'm not very hungry after all, but I will have another glass of wine." "Of course. Perhaps you'd like to try something else? A salad? Some pasta?" "No, thank you. Just the wine." Garrett's smile didn't falter, but Elias could see the tension in his shoulders. The plan was falling apart. If Celia didn't eat the poisoned food, she wouldn't get sick. If she didn't get sick, Garrett's associates couldn't rob her. If they couldn't rob her, Garrett couldn't pay his debt. Garrett returned to the kitchen. His face was red. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Elias said. "I did exactly what you told me to do." "Then why isn't she eating?" "I don't know. Maybe she's not hungry. Maybe she doesn't like steak. How is that my fault?" Before Garrett could respond, something happened in the dining room. The front door opened, and 3 men walked in. They weren't dressed like customers. They wore dark suits and serious expressions. They didn't wait to be seated. They walked straight toward table 7. Garrett's face went white. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." Celia Thorne stood up as the men approached. She wasn't scared. She wasn't surprised. She looked like she had been expecting them. One of the men handed her a folder. She opened it, read something inside, then nodded. Then she pointed directly at Garrett. The 3 men turned and started walking toward the kitchen. Garrett stumbled backward, knocking over a tray of dishes. The crash echoed through the restaurant. Customers looked up from their meals. The other servers froze. "Wait," Garrett said as the men entered the kitchen. "Wait, we can talk about this. I can get you the money. I just need more time." "No more time," one of the men said. His voice was calm and flat. "Ms. Thorne would like to speak with you. Outside." "Ms. Thorne." Garrett's confusion was obvious. What does she have to do with this? That's when Elias understood. The realization hit him like a punch to the stomach. Celia Thorne wasn't a random rich woman. She wasn't a venture capitalist in town for one night. She was connected to the syndicate Garrett owed money to. Maybe she worked for them. Maybe she owned them. Either way, Garrett had just tried to poison someone very, very dangerous. The men grabbed Garrett by the arms and dragged him toward the back door. He struggled and shouted, but it didn't matter. They were stronger, and they didn't care who was watching. The kitchen staff backed away, wanting no part of whatever was happening. As they pulled Garrett past Elias, their eyes met. Garrett's face was full of rage and terror. "You," he hissed. "You told her." Elias said nothing. There was nothing to say. They took Garrett out through the back door into the alley. The door slammed shut behind them. The kitchen was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerators. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They all just stood there, trying to process what just happened. Then Celia Thorne walked into the kitchen. Celia Thorne stood in the doorway of the kitchen, still holding her wine glass. She looked at each staff member in turn, her gaze sharp and measuring. When her eyes landed on Elias, she nodded toward the manager's office. "You, come with me." Elias's legs felt like rubber, but he followed her into the small office. She closed the door behind them and sat down in Garrett's chair. She pulled a napkin from her purse and placed it on the desk between them. "This was very brave," she said, tapping the note with one finger. "Also very foolish. Do you understand what could have happened if Garrett had seen you write this?" "Yes, ma'am. Call me Celia. And sit down before you fall down." Elias sat. His mind was spinning with questions, but he didn't know which one to ask first. Celia saved him the trouble. "I'm going to explain something to you," she said. 3 weeks ago, Garrett Mills borrowed money from an organization I own. It's not a legal organization, but it serves a purpose. It provides loans to people who can't get them anywhere else. The interest rates are high, but they're clearly stated. Everyone who borrows knows exactly what they're getting into. She took a sip of wine before continuing. Garrett missed his first payment, then his second. Then he stopped answering phone calls. Most people in a situation either run away or try to pay what they owe, but Garrett is stupid and arrogant. My people heard through their sources that he was planning something, so I decided to find out what. "You set this up?" Elias said, understanding. "You knew he would try something." "I suspected. I've been in this business long enough to recognize a desperate coward when I see one. So I made a reservation under my real name, wore expensive jewelry, and played the perfect target. I want to see if Garrett would actually try to rob me. More importantly, I want to see if he would go along with it." "Why me?" Celia smiled. "Because my people did their research. You're not like Garrett. You have a daughter. You work 2 jobs. You've never been in trouble. You're exactly the kind of person Garrett would try to manipulate and threaten. I needed to know if you were part of the scheme or if you were just another victim." Elias felt anger rising in his chest. "So you used me. You put me in an impossible situation just to test me." "Yes," Celia said without apology. "And you passed. You chose to do the right thing even though it put you at risk. Do you know how rare that is? Most people in your position would have poisoned me and hoped for the best. But you didn't. You warned me. What's going to happen to Garrett? Nothing good. He tried to poison someone to get out of a debt. That's not how things work in my world. There are rules. There are consequences. Are you going to kill him? Celia's expression didn't change. That's not your concern. What should concern you is what happens next to you and your daughter. Elias's stomach dropped. Please. Maya didn't do anything. She's just a kid. I'll pay whatever Garrett owed. I'll work for free. I'll do whatever you want. Just leave her alone. Relax, Celia said, raising a hand. I'm not threatening your daughter. I'm offering you a job. Elias stared at her, not understanding. Celia opened a drawer in Garrett's desk and pulled out a folder. She laid it on the desk and opened it. Inside were several documents with official-looking letterhead. I own this restaurant, Celia said, along with 6 others in the city. Garrett was just a manager, and he did a terrible job. The place has been losing money for months because he was stealing from the till to pay his gambling debts. I've been looking for someone to replace him. Someone honest. Someone who understands what it means to work hard. Someone who won't steal from me. She slid the papers across the desk. Elias picked them up. They were contracts. Employment contracts. I'm offering you a partnership, Celia said. You'll manage this restaurant and help me oversee the others. The salary is $80,000 a year plus profit sharing, health insurance, retirement plan, everything you need to give your daughter a stable life. Elias read the contracts twice, certain he was misunderstanding. Why would you do this? Because you're the kind of person I want working for me. You had every reason to follow Garrett's orders tonight. He threatened your child. He put you in an impossible situation, but you still did the right thing. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. I'm not qualified to run a restaurant. I'm just a server. You'll learn. I have people who can teach you. What I can't teach is integrity. You either have it or you don't. You have it. Elias looked at the contract again. $80,000 a year. Health insurance. A stable job that wouldn't disappear if he made one mistake. It was more than he had ever hoped for. It was the kind of opportunity that could change Maya's entire life. What about Garrett? He asked. Garrett is no longer your problem. Do we have a deal? Elias thought about his daughter. He thought about the cramped apartment and the bills he could barely pay. He thought about the future that had always seemed impossibly far away. Then he thought about the choice he had made tonight, the choice to do what was right even when it was dangerous. Yes, he said, we have a deal. Celia smiled and extended her hand. Elias shook it. Her grip was firm and her eyes were steady. In that moment, Elias understood that he had just made a deal with someone very powerful and very dangerous. But he also understood that as long as he was honest and worked hard, he would be protected. One more thing, Celia said as she stood to leave. The note you wrote me? Keep writing things like that. In this business, people who tell the truth are worth more than gold. She walked out of the office, leaving Elias sitting there with a contract in his hands and a future that looked completely different than it had an hour ago. The next morning, Elias picked up Maya from his neighbor's house. She ran to him and hugged him tight, completely unaware of how close they had come to disaster. He held her and made a silent promise that he would never let anyone threaten her again. As they walked home, Maya asked him about his day. Elias smiled and told her about his new job, about how things were going to get better now. She believed him because she was 8 and her father had never lied to her. That night, after Maya was asleep, Elias stood at his window and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Garrett was dealing with the consequences of his choices. Somewhere out there, Celia Thorne was running her empire of loans and leverage. And somewhere in between, Elias had found a way to survive by choosing to do what was right. He didn't know if that made him brave or just lucky, but it didn't matter. He had his daughter, and he had a future. That was enough. This story teaches us that integrity cannot be bought or intimidated into silence. When faced with an impossible choice between protecting ourselves and doing what's right, our character is truly revealed. Elias could have chosen the easy path, poisoning an innocent woman to save himself and his daughter from immediate danger. Instead, he took the harder road, risking everything to warn a stranger. His decision reminds us that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to act morally despite that fear. Sometimes the right choice feels like the most dangerous one, but it's often the only path that leads to genuine transformation. When we stand firm in our values, even when threatened, we not only protect our own integrity, but often discover that the universe has a way of rewarding those who refuse to compromise their humanity. So here's the real question. Did you subscribe yet? Thousands of people will listen to this story and won't subscribe. Please don't be that person. Kindly support what I do here by subscribing. And then drop in the comment section if you like part 2 of Elias and Celia's story. What challenges will Elias face as a new manager? How will he navigate the dangerous world of Celia's criminal empire while raising his daughter? Will Garrett return seeking revenge? Let me know if you want to hear more.